Welcome back to another episode of Matt Travels. No Andrew today. I am currently up in Wautoma, Wisconsin for the Conference of Principal Officers. Going to kind of try to do what we did at Grand Lodge and grab a bunch of little short interviews with a few different people. So we'll see how it goes, and I hope you enjoy this episode.
Loosen up your ties and roll up your sleeves. It's time for fellowship with Matt and Andrew. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are not necessarily the views and opinions of the Grand Lodge of Wisconsin or any other Grand Lodge or any appended body.
All right, so let's get this show on the road here. I'm back with a very familiar voice on the podcast. He might almost need his own intro from Kurt at some point because we have worshipful brother Adam Rigdon again. How you doing this morning, Adam?
I'm doing fantastic. And you, Matt?
I am doing just fine. Let me see. All right, I think I got your mic dialed in now.
All right, sounds good.
I hope I do, at least. I don't know. This is Andrew's deal with this. So we are up here for the Conference of Principal Officers, which was an event that you started telling me about quite a while ago, and I thought it was a really cool idea, and hopefully a lot of other people do too. We'll see, how many people show up, but it's the first year or something. You never know how it's going to go. I've said time and time again, you got to give a new thing 3 years to get up off the ground before you decide to go one way or the other with
Absolutely. The first one is always less than what it potentially could be. Once people learn about the details and things that, and they spread the word,
Right.
It'll definitely increase. This is a huge learning experience here for all of us as presenters also, just listening to the other presenters. So, and I'm really excited for your piece in particular.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I haven't done a presentation in forever. I opened up PowerPoint to put together that presentation, and I was like, man, they made PowerPoint a lot easier than when I was younger. This is nicer. And I was like, oh, and they have some really cool transitions and animations now that didn't exist 20 years ago the last time I used PowerPoint.
Right. The hardest part of PowerPoint today is finding where to get it to display fully on the screen without all the tabs on your computer showing up.
Right, exactly.
Figure that out.
Yeah. So, why don't you run us real quick kind of through what the plan is for the day, or at least high level, what presentations we got going on so people have an understanding of what people are coming here to learn.
Yeah, so this is all about planning strategically for your lodge. What it's going to do is it's going to make our lodges more, not necessarily independent, but more...
Strengthen them a bit.
Thanks. Losing my train of thought here.
No, you're all good.
But yeah, strengthen our lodges, because that strengthens the brethren of our lodges, which at the end of the day makes our community better because we know more stuff and have a stronger connection to our lodge and the business aspect of the lodge, because at the end of the day, the building's going to crumble, you're not going to have any brethren.
Right.
And it's game over. Consolidation time or turn in your charter. So.
Right. And no, I think it's a brilliant idea to, and you've managed to bring in some presenters that are very knowledgeable in the different topics they're presented on, which I think you said there's the biggest chunk of the day is about strategic planning.
Correct.
Yep.
Worshipful brother Chris Cochran.
Okay.
He knows much about those types of things and leadership trainings and stuff like that. It's a very valuable resource. That's the core of the day, and we're starting off with that. It's going to be about 2 hours, and it'll give us a good basis of understanding of strategic planning. I know quite a bit about it already, and our lodge is engaged in it currently, in the beginning stages yet, but you can go worshipful master and change stuff, and then the next one changes stuff, but there has to be an underlying tone of business throughout all the years of all the worshipful masters, and with the trustees and all that. If the plan is bad, or you don't have one, which is even worse yet, which most places don't, that's the things that happen, that, okay, we're going to spend this money on this, but we really should be saving for a roof because we know that we're going to need a roof in 10 years.
Right.
So, and that brings me on to the next presenter, worshipful brother Jim Geezy. He's going to do the facilities management piece.
Awesome.
that he has. It's posted on the Grand Lodge website in the members area, so log into that and check that out.
Sweet.
But he's going to give us an overview of that process, and that's a key feature for improvements to your lodge, because nobody wants to be a member of a place that's fallen down and the paint's peeling and
Right.
you got stains on your ceiling tiles, and
Yeah.
and there's a way out of that.
Right.
And then we'll move on to mine, and it's about event planning. I have a very vast repertoire of events that I've planned through my business and other things, and that's going to be pretty short. I have a lot of handouts that people can bring with them. A member skills survey that just gives people that you don't see every day understand what they do and what they're good at.
Right.
That helps, because a lot of times you plan events and you just give the duties to the people that are present at the meeting, and that's not the right way to do it. You need the people that have good skill sets in the areas of marketing and those
Right.
types of things. If you're great at herding cats,
You're right.
then you're perfect
Right.
for rounding up Masons and coordinating volunteers,
Right.
stuff like that. And then, of course, we're going to go into your presentation.
Bylaws.
I know our bylaws need a little tweaking, and I'm not very familiar with the complexity that needs to be done in order to make them viable. So.
Bylaws are they're a tough nut to crack sometime, but we're talking about a lot of stuff today that I think a lot of people sometimes get scared of because they don't know where to start with it. Especially you say the word strategic planning and somebody goes, that's huge. That's a huge project, right? And where do I even start with it? So I think this will be good to give people a baseline of at least, okay, now I understand a little bit more about it and maybe feel a little more comfortable starting to tackle that project, right?
Right. Yeah, and there's a lot of processes throughout strategic planning that Chris is going to touch on.
Right.
And maybe not go super in depth on it, but I know him, and he'd be open to future questions from people. So
Sweet.
Everybody will go home with some information today that is much needed in our current state of our lodges.
Right.
So by strengthening our individual lodges, it makes our whole system and our jurisdiction stronger.
Right.
Which is going to draw in more good men of quality and character into our lodges, which we need to keep the lights on and keep to rebuild the roof if you need one, because there's always something.
Oh, there's always something. Excellent. Well, thanks for popping on the morning. You're coordinating an event, so I appreciate you taking a minute out of your day here to do this real quick, and maybe we'll throw you on again at the end of the day and talk about how it went.
Yeah, certainly, and make sure you bite into a cinnamon roll.
Yeah, I'm going to grab one as soon as I pause this recording.
Sounds good.
All right, so we are currently on our lunch break at Wisconsin Conference of Principal Officers. It's been a very educational morning so far, and I am joined by Brother Dave Vargas, a member up here at Wautoma Lodge and a regular visitor at Lake Lodge. We always love having you pop in, so good to see you today as well. Let's start off with, how long have you been a Freemason?
Well, I have been a Freemason now for 3 years. Was raised in July of 2021, just coming out of the pandemic times, and so it's been a great journey thus far. I like to say that I like to travel around, and as you said, visiting down at Lake, you've asked me before, or at least Andrew has asked me before to join you, and it's hard to pin me down because I travel quite a bit between here and there and the rest of Wisconsin.
Right. Which, I know you're kind of all over the place all the time. That's why I was like, ooh, hey, he's here. I'm gonna steal him for a few minutes.
Glad to be here.
So what got you interested in Freemasonry? Why did you become a Freemason?
Well, I would say that I had initially thought about Freemasonry in the early 2000s, mid-2000s. I was working here in Wautoma at the time, very close by, across the street. And, of course, I'd been in this lodge before, back when I was in the Cub Scouts. Our Cub Master was a Mason, and we used this location for a Pine Derby, probably about 10 feet that way.
All right.
And I, of course, being in the Scouts and being in a college fraternity, I always thought, well, maybe I'd like to explore meeting other men and like-minded men. So I made some inquiries at that time, even saw my former Cub Master one day, but he didn't really give me a lot of information. So kind of put that on the back burner for a while, and I ended up moving down towards the Milwaukee area. And in 2019, my best friend, Victor Magnus, who's been a guest several times, he said, yeah, I did a thing. And it was right before he was being deployed, and he talked to me about it as I drove him to out to Camp Douglas. Because he had just posted for his MM, probably the night before, I think it was. And so he's just telling me about that, and it just got me curious. And so as we talked, as he was overseas and, of course, pandemic times, we kind of explored a little bit more. Then I found that Adam, who I had worked for 20-some years ago, was also a Mason, and that's top and bottom line signers for me. And so I think after Victor got back, I came over for some fellowship, and before our Masonic year was out, I had submitted my application, but it took some time because we're dark in January and February.
Yep.
And so my EA was in early April.
Oh, right on. Yeah. No, that's awesome. And I'm kind of disappointed Victor is not here, and I know he's going to hear this. So
I'm disappointed too. Where are you?
Apparently he's camping something. I don't know. Family stuff. But, I really missed getting that good back-cracking hug out of him. So
Absolutely.
So we've had one presentation so far this morning. Chris had a very long, very informative presentation. What have you found? Now, are you currently an officer?
I'm not.
Right. So you're not in the line or anything else. And, I'm assuming part of the reason you're here is because your lodge is hosting it. And another part of the reason you're here is because you like to learn. So, what have you found to be your biggest takeaway so far this morning?
So, as you said, I came here when this was first announced. I put this on my calendar because I believe in Masonic education, but not just the education of ritual, but it's how do we keep this going, because this is an amazing fraternity.
Agreed.
And when 3 months after I was raised, I was asked to be junior deacon, and I accepted, and I kind of walked in not knowing anything.
Right.
I didn't know that I should maybe start planning. I didn't know that maybe then 6 years later I could be in the East.
Right.
There's a lot of things I didn't know, and I really focused on just the ritual because, you know what? Everybody's watching. Everybody's listening.
Yep.
They've been doing this for years and years. And it took me some time, and I realized that having an organization continue in a positive way, you have to have good communication.
Yep.
These are not the secrets of Freemasonry.
Right.
But sometimes we treat them as such because we don't have those conversations about let's look at planning ahead.
Right.
So that we are sustainable, we are solvent. And there have been a number of lodges where, unfortunately, there may have not been some good stewardship in the past. And what happens? They seem to have to, maybe they lose their lodge buildings, and perhaps they have to
merge.
Basically, it's a challenging time, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want that to happen.
Right.
So I really don't have any skin in the game right now for being here today, except for the fact that I want to support Adam because we've been friends for so long, and I believe in this process. I believe in learning more, and I might not need it tomorrow. I might not need it next year or in 3 years.
Right.
But there is some good information and good connections that will be very helpful. So today, it's just learning more about what about that sustainability. What does it take to position yourself and your lodge to move forward? I would say the biggest takeaway for me was, how do you engage the public? How do you engage your own members? We all have members who are just dues paying. We haven't seen them in forever.
Right.
We can ask them to show up. We can tell them this is what we have going on. But maybe we need to do some coaching with our own membership who are attending. So when they see someone they don't know, what are some questions they could go up and ask them?
Right.
Let's sit with them during fellowship. Learn what their history is, because everybody has a story to tell.
Oh, yeah.
People love telling their stories.
Yep.
So let's give them that opportunity. And so one note I made was just brotherly engagement, Masonic engagement, talking to one another, and then learning from that, moving ahead, saying that we see value in you, we want you to come back.
Right. No, I 100% agree with you. That was a huge point of Chris's talk this morning, and I agree there are ways to do that, and that's been something I've been trying to do a little bit more at Lake, and I think it might be working. I mean, We've had a few people show up that haven't been to lodge in a while. So, but yeah, no, that was a huge point of his talk this morning. So, and I think that's a good place to end it, because I'm going to try to get Jason on before we go back in and learn some more stuff. I think we got facilities management and calendar planning, and then bylaws. Ooh, bylaws.
Such a great opportunity, and I would ask that anyone who does listen to this to put this on your calendar for next year.
Yeah, we got to push this for next year, because this has been hugely valuable, even for me sitting in the East and, identifying some of these things already. Chris's talk was phenomenal, and I made a lot of notes on different stuff to try. So, all right, awesome. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
All right, next up we have Worshipful Brother Jason Loker from Amro Lodge. I don't know why I just right there. Sorry about that. Well, welcome onto the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for sitting down with me. I appreciate that. So we'll start up with a couple easy softball lob questions. How long have you been a Freemason?
7 years. I was raised in May of 2017.
Awesome. And what got you interested in Freemasonry?
So as a kid, I've always been interested in the Templar Knights. We went to the Shriner Circus, and they have that page filled out with what the shrine does. And then some things in Amro happened. I didn't know they had a lodge. Back in 2019, going through a pretty bad, or 2016, messy divorce, kind of by myself, parents for guidance, but was searching for that brotherhood. So I reached out, went to the Grand Lodge website, reached out to see if there was any lodges around. They got me in touch with Amro, and it's been life since then.
Awesome. And now you're in the East.
Yes, yes.
Did you sit all the chairs on the way, or?
No, I did not. So they started me in the junior deacon chair about 2 months after I was raised.
Okay.
And then did the rest of the year there, then went to senior deacon. And then after that was junior warden, then COVID happened, so kind of didn't have anything there.
Right.
And then did 2 more years as junior warden, then 2 as senior warden, and now I'm in the East now.
Awesome. That's great. And since we're here at this Wisconsin Conference of Principal Officers, one of these times I'll get the name of it right on the first try. What was your biggest takeaway from Chris's talk this morning?
Biggest takeaway for us, or for me as Amro, and a small lodge where we only have maybe 5 to 7 people that show up regularly, is how to get people to want to participate in things or drive members to be interested in it.
Right.
Also, to not make excuses for being a small lodge anymore. We have to get out of that mindset that we're a small town, we're not many people, when they graduate and move out of here, which isn't the case. I know a lot of my friends are still in Amro. The people I watch grow up are still in Amro. But when we're not visible in the community, it's hard to get people to want to show up.
I think it's important for even smaller, more rural lodges to think big, because that's what will get people knocking on your door, right? Be out there, be doing stuff. And that requires a lot of work with less people, don't get me wrong. When you have a crew of 15 to 20 people you can pull from, it makes it a lot easier to pull off doing a lot of stuff. But if you guys start out with 5 to 7 guys putting in a lot of work, if that gets noticed, maybe in 10 years from now, that crew will be 15. Maybe in 5 years from now, it'll be 15. Who knows, right? That's how you can get to that next level, is you have to think bigger than where you're at, right?
And see, when I was raised, all we did in the community was give a scholarship out once a year.
Right.
Now we do an adopt a family at Christmas time. We hand out candy at Halloween. We have a golf outing every year. We donate over $1,000 to the food pantry in Amro every year. We sponsored a youth baseball team this year for the first time ever.
Right.
So we're getting out there more, and it's great to see everybody take a little bit of ownership and pride in being a Mason in Amro.
That sounds awesome. That sounds like you guys have gotten out of that small lodge thinking already. You're tending towards we're not going to make an excuse for this.
Yes.
And I think that harkens back to something Chris mentioned this morning with the Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. That book is phenomenal. So is the other one that I mentioned, the Leadership Strategies, and honestly, if you take that extreme ownership mentality, which it sounds like you guys are starting to do, or in the process of doing, that's what's going to make you successful and relevant again.
Yeah, and one of the big things is that Chris brought up were those 6 principal things that the whys, brotherhood, the ownership, the self-improvement, charity.
Yep.
And one of the things that we could do better in our lodge is actually ask the brothers, why are you here?
Right.
Out of these 5 things, rank them 1 through 5, and
Right.
then let's build on
Yeah.
the worst one.
Yep.
And then to go on that is, one of the main points at the beginning was, why are you a Mason and what do you do? Everybody in Omro can answer why we're
Right.
Masons, but I don't know if everybody could say what we actually do in our community.
Right.
They'd have to sit there and think about it, where I could talk for 5 minutes on the things that we do back to the community. in
Right.
Omro, so.
I think it's important to have the brothers educated in that and in the ability to talk about what you actually do, right? So that's awesome, and I think we're going to get going again here in about 5 minutes, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me again.
Appreciate
it. Was a
it.
pleasure.
All right, so we are wrapping up our day here from the Wisconsin Conference of Principal Officers. I think it went really well. Adam, how do you think it went?
It was fantastic. All the presenters, including you, did a good job, even though you haven't done one in 20-some years.
Yeah, I may have over-animated my PowerPoint, but it was fun. I was having so much fun with PowerPoint.
Well, yeah, you got to do what you got to do,
Right.
If you're having fun, just go with it. you know.
Well, and,
That's what we did here today.
yeah, we had a lot of fun here today. There's a lot of valuable information, and my personal opinion, especially like bylaws, it's a fascinating topic, but there's nothing of it that is necessarily engaging. So I was like, well, maybe if I can make the PowerPoint a little engaging, or keep people's eyes wondering what's going to happen next on it, like maybe that'll help lighten it a little bit and keep people's attention better.
Well, it could be considered a dry topic, as some of these topics may be considered dry topics, but they're absolutely essential for building our lodges.
Yep.
And doing it the right way. If you don't do it the right way and you don't have buy-in from your membership and your officer line, you're just beating your head against the wall, and your building's going to crumble, you're going to consolidate, or whatever the course of action happens to be at the time. We need to really focus on the business piece, in addition to, keeping our current dues-paying members active, getting them back active, and making new Masons
Right.
who are going to be active.
Right. And, interestingly enough, one of my big takeaways for the day was actually from Brother Jim on his presentation about like finances and planning for the future and all that kind of
Facilities
stuff.
management,
Yeah,
yeah.
facilities management. Being that we have such a large building, all of a sudden I was sitting there going, hey, wait a minute. We're talking about doing a dues increase, right? Which we need. But like, it seems like we always use all of our dues monies for the lodge's operating budget every year. And I'm like, why don't we look at like, can we increase dues enough that we don't have to dump it back into the budget, and we can actually start putting money on the side for capital projects that are going to have to happen down the road, outside of doing like, the Spaghetti dinner and the Burns dinner, which are kind of little fundraisers that we do, right? And, in the soup and chili night that we do, you're not necessarily bringing in always a lot of money from those events. So it would be almost nice to have a source of revenue out of the dues, even if it's just $5 per person per year, that's going to add up in 10 years, especially if it's invested properly with your other investments and you're making money on all that, to be able to set those people up when they need to do another new roof in 25 years, another new parking lot in 25 years, that they know the funds are going to be there, and they're not sitting there going, where are we going to come up with, who knows, 10 years from now, that could be a $250,000 project to do both of them, right?
Right. And we haven't been set up, and most lodges, from my understanding, haven't been set up in that fashion by our predecessors. It's our job to change that.
Yep.
Because we want to still have our building here in Wautoma at, like 50, 100 years from now.
Exactly.
And, if we don't do something today and start changing how we do things and get rid of this, lackadaisical attitude and just attack things the way we need to, and to get the job done, it's going to be a sad story someday, and
Right.
And none of us want that.
No, that's absolutely the last thing we want, right? We all want to see it succeed, and it's our job as stewards of the craft now to make sure that future generations are set up to do that.
Absolutely. And I think, all the main takeaways from the conference today really emphasizes all of that, being stewards of our buildings, being stewards of our members, being able to use our members' skill sets to the best of their abilities in, event planning and those types of things, and just being able to plan all the time and far enough ahead that things are easy,
Right. Agreed, very much so. This whole thing today, I don't know what it was about, if it was the presentations themselves, the content, or just the overall vibe of today. I'm walking out of here today thinking about Lake Lodge 50 years in the future and what I can do to make sure that Lake Lodge has 100 years to go after that 50 years.
Yeah. Yep.
So I think that's my big takeaway today. Thank you very much for hosting this, Adam. Anybody who missed it this year, when this inevitably happens again next year, you need to be here. It was great. Your presentation was awesome. So thank you for putting this all together. I think people really missed out if they weren't able to make it, and I think this is something that definitely needs to be continued.
Yeah, I agree too. And just a testimony, not giving myself personal kudos, but just a testimony to the planning I did. My year's been smooth sailing. Not that there hasn't been, trials and tribulations. Right. You're privy to some of those.
Yep.
But we won't go into those. But all the execution for the events that we planned and the educational pieces, I still had time, without losing any family time,
right,
to organize this event also during a busy year being Worshipful Master.
Well, and that's a huge credit to your officer line and the team that you guys have developed at this lodge, that you were able to take that extra time with this project and everything continued to run because you really have a strong team behind you.
Yeah.
So.
And that's the goal of every lodge, is to build the bench strength of your members and your officer line, and just getting buy-in for those pet projects such as this conference.
Yep.
So
always be training your replacement, and it seems like you're doing it well up here because you have a really strong team.
Yeah, appreciate that, and I feel really good about the future of our lodge. And with the additional information I got from the other presenters other than myself, I even feel more confident that this lodge will be strong and be able to attack and tackle any problems, financially or otherwise, in the future, as long as we implement the things that we learned.
Right, exactly. So thank you again for being on the show yet again. I think you might be up there for most appearances on Time for Fellowship with Matt and Andrew. I think this makes 4. So I think you're up there on that list. So we really appreciate all your support with what we do at the podcast too.
Yeah, and I appreciate you guys as well for supporting, these kind of things, and mentioning our car show and those types of things. That's we have to be team players.
Yep.
Throughout the state. So.
We should share in everyone's success and try to help everyone succeed.
Yep, and that's a good motto to have.
Yep.
All right.
Awesome. Great place to leave it. All right, everybody, have a great day. Make sure you're following us on all of our socials, and please rate and subscribe to the podcast. It really helps push us out in the algorithm. Have a great one.